What if the man who delivered God's law to Israel was born from a union the same law would later call a sin, raised a son who almost got him killed by God himself, and started a family line that ended in idol worship? Nobody in Sunday school ever told you this part. At the end of his life, the patriarch Jacob gathered his sons to reveal their future. But for his third-born, Levi, the prophecy was a condemnation. In Genesis 49, verses 5 through 7, Jacob declares, "Simeon and Levi are brothers. Weapons of violence are their swords. Cursed be their anger, for it is fierce, and their wrath, for it is cruel. I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel." This deathbed judgment was the direct consequence of the massacre at Shechem, where Levi and Simeon slaughtered the city's inhabitants to avenge their sister. Jacob's decree of scattering and division created the first fracture in the bloodline, ensuring Levi's descendants would receive no tribal territory of their own. Instead, they were dispersed across 48 isolated cities. Yet a clear contradiction exists within the biblical account. The very line Jacob formally condemned became the priestly class, entrusted with the tabernacle and the temple. This institutional reversal sparked a centuries-long debate among biblical scholars. In the Talmud, Tractate Sanhedrin preserves a fundamental disagreement. Was this dispersion a lasting retributive penalty, or a preordained mission to distribute teachers of the law throughout the nation? The medieval commentator Rashi argued the curse was functionally neutralized, redirected by divine necessity into a sacred vocation. However, Nachmanides countered that the physical punishment of landlessness remained active, a lingering mark of ancestral anger that priestly honor could never fully erase. The foundation of Israel's entire worship system rests on a bloodline carrying its patriarch's dying curse. Exodus 6 verse 20 records a genealogical detail that introduces an immediate structural tension at the very head of the priestly family. The text states that Amram married Jochebed, his father's sister, who bore him Aaron and Moses. The Pentateuch presents this aunt-nephew union plainly, offering no divine warning, apology, or commentary. Yet Leviticus 18 verse 12 explicitly outlaws this exact relation, stating that you shall not uncover the nakedness of your father's sister. She is your father's near kinswoman. Under the law Moses received, his own parents' marriage is defined as a prohibited, illicit union. In the Mishneh Torah, the medieval philosopher Maimonides attempted to resolve this paradox, arguing that the divine prohibitions only became binding at Mount Sinai, leaving pre-Sinaitic ancestral unions exempt. But the text of the Pentateuch itself remains silent. It leaves the foundational lawgiver born of a union that his own law condemns, a silent contradiction woven directly into the lineage of the priesthood. When Moses fled Egypt into the desert, his alliance with Jethro, the priest of Midian, established a geopolitical and kinship tension that the biblical text never fully resolves. Moses married Jethro's daughter, Zipporah, binding his lineage to a people who were ancestral kin. Genesis 25, verses 1 through 2 explicitly records Midian's descent from Abraham through his second wife, Keturah, establishing a shared biological heritage. Yet, this shared bloodline did not prevent catastrophic violence. In Numbers 31, a divinely commanded war ordered Israel to completely destroy the Midianites, executing a campaign of total warfare that turned Moses' own family connections into targets of annihilation. This external conflict mirrored a sharp internal fracture. Numbers 12 preserves Miriam and Aaron's sharp public criticism of Moses over his foreign marriage. Yet, in a striking structural paradox, Exodus 18 reveals that Israel's entire judicial system was designed not by an Israelite priest, but by Jethro, the Midianite. Moses' household sits directly at the center of this unresolved conflict, where family ties, national boundaries, and religious systems refuse to reconcile cleanly, complicating the very foundation of the nation. On the journey back to Egypt, at a desert lodging place, the Exodus narrative takes a dark, unexplained turn. Exodus 4, verses 24 to 26, records that the Lord met Moses and sought to kill him. Without warning, Zipporah takes a sharp flint, circumcises their son, and touches the blood to Moses' feet, saying, "Surely you are a bridegroom of blood to me." In his Anchor Bible commentary, William Propp catalogs more than 30 interpretations of this scene, calling it a passage of nightmare-like quality that resists simple explanation. Later traditions, such as Targum's Pseudo-Jonathan, attempted to resolve the scandal by shifting the divine attack away from Moses and onto the child. Yet the ancient Hebrew text remains unyielding, leaving Moses' mission preserved only through an act of raw, unresolved ritual violence. Judges chapter 18 verse 30 records the first named descendant of Moses in the post-Sinai narrative, a man named Jonathan, son of Gershom. But his role is a scandal. Jonathan is not leading Israel in covenant faithfulness. He is serving as the priest for an illicit, idolatrous shrine in the northern tribe of Dan. The ancient scribes transmitting the Hebrew text faced a devastating reality. The grandson of Israel's lawgiver was an apostate priest. To protect the reputation of Moses, scribes intervened directly in the manuscript tradition. They inserted a single suspended letter, the Hebrew letter Nun, above the name of Moses, altering Moshe into Manasseh. The Biblia Hebraica Stuttgartensia. Critical apparatus documents this literal hanging Nun, leaving a physical marker of editorial embarrassment preserved in the Leningrad and Aleppo codices. While ancient Greek, Latin, and Syriac translations bypass this alteration and retain the original name, the Hebrew manuscript tradition permanently bears the scar of this intervention. This suppression continues in 1 Chronicles chapter 23 verses 14 to 15, where the descendants of Gershom and Eleazar are compressed and flattened into a brief administrative list, submerging Moses' direct bloodline into obscurity. The biological reality of the priestly caste became measurable in 1997. A landmark study published in the journal Nature, co-authored by Karl Skorecki, identified a specific Y chromosome signature shared by the vast majority of self-identified Jewish priests, the Kohanim. This Cohen modal haplotype pointed to a shared Near Eastern paternal ancestor. But when researchers analyzed the wider Levite lineage, the genetic signature fractured. In 2003, a study in the American Journal of Human Genetics by Mark Thomas and Tudor Parfit analyzed Ashkenazi Levite Y chromosomes. Instead of a uniform Near Eastern lineage, they discovered that over 50% of the Levite sample carried haplogroup R1A1. This genetic signature is common in Eastern Europe and Central Asia, but rare among other Jewish populations. Skorecki assessed that this Levite pattern is difficult to explain within a straightforward Sinai-era origin, suggesting that a non-Israelite male entered the Levite line. These genetic findings have strict methodological boundaries. Haplogroups cannot identify specific historical individuals like Moses, and Y chromosome dating models remain probabilistic rather than absolute. Yet the science makes the bloodline problem measurable. The genetic record does not show a sealed, isolated line. Instead, the DNA echoes the broader patterns found in the textual record, preserving a physical archive of mixture, movement, and multiple origins at the heart of the priestly tribe. These layers of textual and genetic fragmentation invite divergent explanations. Philosopher Emmanuel Levinas argued that Moses lacks a stable, grounded identity. In this view, his placelessness allows him to carry a universal law, untethered to tribal ancestry. Christian theologians from Origen to Martin Luther similarly reframed this compromised ancestry, reading the broken lineage as a typological proof of divine grace, transcending heredity. Yet these theological readings do not resolve the historical problem. The suspended letter in the Hebrew manuscripts and the European signatures in the DNA remain. Moses remains where purity, mixture, curse, and calling permanently collide. By suspending a single letter, ancient scribes left a monument to an unresolved truth. Today, as genetic codes and textual anomalies converge, Moses' lineage refuses to be sanitized. The sacred past remains hauntingly fractured. What do you think lies behind the text? Share your thoughts below.